I remember it all so vividly. The feeling of the mask slipping over my face, the cold sensation of the anesthesia taking hold, the nurse's voice telling me to count backwards, each number slipping further away as I drifted into unconsciousness. Then, suddenly, everything shifted. I wasn't in a hospital room anymore, not in that sterile, fluorescent world. I found myself in a place of peace, a realm of light and love so overwhelming that it took me a moment to understand what was happening. I knew immediately, without a shadow of a doubt, that I was in heaven. And there, standing before me, was Jesus. His presence was undeniable, and though I was filled with awe, there was this strange sense of confusion lingering. I knew it was him, but I couldn't quite grasp the full magnitude of the moment. That moment marked the beginning of an experience I can hardly describe, a journey into heaven that has changed me forever. My story began so simply, with what I thought was a common cold after a trip to Nashville to visit family. But what followed was anything but ordinary. A sore throat turned into something far more serious, and before I knew it, I was fighting for my life in a hospital bed. The doctors were ready to give up on me, talking about hospice care after I flatlined. Yet in that place of darkness, God's grace reached out and pulled me into a reality beyond anything I had ever imagined. Today, I'm sharing my story with you in the hope that it helps you see the boundless love and grace of Jesus in a way you've never seen before. This is not just a tale of survival. It's a story of transformation, hope, and divine grace. I remember feeling this strange pressure in my throat. Something was definitely wrong, but I couldn't quite pinpoint it. My neck and face were swollen, though I barely noticed at the time, chalking it up to being sick. I told the nurse how strange it felt, but she was frustrated and snapped at me to sit down. It stung, but I obeyed. Then, as I turned around, I heard a voice, clear as day, telling me, "You're about to fall." No sooner had I heard those words than my body gave way, and I collapsed. I don't recall the fall, but others told me later. When I came to, doctors were standing over me, speaking in urgent tones. They said I had an abscess in my throat blocking my airway and that I needed emergency surgery. It was then they told me I had sepsis. My heart sank. My mom had died from septic shock when I was just a child. In that moment, I felt fear creep up on me, but I held tight to my faith. I prayed, trusting that Jesus would bring me through this. As they wheeled me into surgery, I felt a calm assurance wash over me. And then, everything went dark. The next thing I knew, I was no longer in that hospital room. I was in heaven. I found myself in heaven, a place that felt both familiar and incredibly new. The moment I arrived, I instantly knew I was in the presence of Jesus. There was no doubt in my mind. It was him. But, despite the clarity of his presence, I felt a sense of confusion, as if everything was happening too fast for me to fully understand. But Jesus, always kind and gentle, gave me space to acclimate, standing a little to the side, patiently waiting for me to gather myself. I was still me, just in a different form, without the constraints of a physical body. My soul, my mind, will, and emotions were alive, and I felt connected to everything around me in a way that transcended anything I had ever experienced on Earth. What struck me first was the absence of pain. If you've ever had chronic pain, you know it's something that becomes a part of your life, a constant hum in the background that you learn to ignore. But here, I felt nothing. No discomfort, no limitation. I felt lighter than air. It was as if I had stepped out of time itself. Here, there was no rush, no pressure to do anything. There was only pure freedom, a feeling so profound and liberating that words fall short in describing it. The light around me was incredible, bright, warm, yet gentle. It reminded me of the sun's rays on a hot day, but it didn't hurt my eyes. It was a divine light, radiating with love and peace. But heaven, as beautiful as it was, wasn't the only reality I encountered. Jesus also showed me the darker forces at play, forces that impact us every day. It was an exchange so powerful and beautiful that it made my heart leap with joy. I felt his love envelop me. It wasn't the kind of love we experience on earth, fleeting and conditional. It was complete, unconditional, overwhelming. I could feel it in every part of me, and it was so pure that I felt like I was being wrapped in a warm embrace. It was as if every insecurity I'd ever carried melted away. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly accepted and loved for who I was, exactly as I am. As I basked in that love, I felt more and more connected to him, as if I was plugged into a divine wave of energy, and it felt like I was finally home. It was a connection unlike any other, a bond so deep that nothing in this world could compare. I wanted to stay in that moment forever. The love, the peace, the freedom. It was everything I had longed for my entire life. I could feel my spirit responding to his presence in a way that was beyond physical touch, like a hug, but deeper. It was as if my very being was reaching out to embrace his, and in that embrace I found everything I had ever needed. There was music in the air, not like anything on earth, but a sweet, harmonious melody that connected everyone around me. It was as if the entire universe was worshipping him in unison, and I was part of it all. Everything, every person, every sound, every moment was perfectly attuned to him. Then Jesus appeared before me in his glorified form. He was radiant, glowing with an intensity that made everything around him shimmer. His robe was pure white, and his presence was overwhelming yet comforting. He began to walk with me, showing me the wonders of heaven. As we walked, I saw two towering trees, their branches stretching high, with a river flowing between them. The river wasn't like any water we know. It shimmered with light and energy, flowing perfectly, creating a sound that resonated deep within me. This river connected everything in heaven, and through it, we communicated with one another, not through words, but through a deep, spiritual knowing. Heaven was beyond anything I could have imagined. It was a place of perfect peace, boundless love, and endless joy. And for the first time, I felt truly at home. As I continued walking in this divine realm, something unexpected caught my attention. Out of nowhere, a horse galloped past me, its movement fluid and graceful, as if it was welcoming me into this awe-inspiring place. It was a simple moment, yet it felt profoundly significant. And then my eyes were drawn back to the massive trees with their glowing branches. The colors of the scene were beyond anything I had ever imagined. It was as if the world around me had been painted with the most vibrant hues, far surpassing anything we have on Earth. Imagine the dazzling effect of Christmas lights, where each bulb glows with warmth and wonder, but multiply that by 1,000. The light shining through the trees created a spectrum of color so intense it felt almost unreal. I stood there, mesmerized, taking in every bit of it. The air was so pure, it was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Normally, when you're near flowers or strong fragrances, they can trigger allergies or make it hard to breathe. But here, there was nothing but ease. Every breath felt like a gift. No allergies, no asthma attacks, just pure, clean air that made everything seem more alive. It was the most natural thing in the world to be surrounded by such beauty. Then, as I looked around, I noticed beings, different, otherworldly beings that I had never seen before. Some had eyes all over their bodies, much like the descriptions of the creatures in the Bible with their 4 faces and wings. Their forms seemed fluid, almost translucent, like nothing we have on Earth. Words fail to capture their true essence, but I knew without a doubt what I was witnessing. These beings were radiant, shimmering with light as the glow of Jesus reflected off them. The connection I felt in that moment was unlike anything I could explain. It was as if the very essence of God was present in every part of this world. His light, His love, His Spirit flowing through everything. I felt completely at home, surrounded by love and peace. Then, as we continued walking, Jesus spoke again, His voice booming with authority and affection. "Amy, look to your right." And when I did, I saw it. Beautiful orbs of golden light, shimmering with warmth and brilliance, like 1,000 glowing Christmas lights, only more vibrant, more divine. These were angels, and I felt honored to witness them. Heaven wasn't just a place. It was a living, breathing existence where everything was connected, where every tree, every being, every breath was a part of God's perfect design. The love, the light, the presence of Jesus. It all came together in a way that I could never have imagined before. It was a reminder that no matter where we are always being loved, always connected to the divine. As I stood there, in awe of everything around me, I began to feel the presence of something, someone, approaching. At first, I couldn't quite place it, but there was something unmistakable about it. It felt familiar, like a warm embrace that I had been missing for so long. Then, as the presence drew nearer, the excitement inside me grew, and I realized who it was. My mother. I couldn't see her yet, but I felt her deeply, like when someone you love is close, and you just know they're there, even without looking. And then, there she was, smiling brightly, just as I remembered her in her youth, glowing with that radiant, glorified body. My heart swelled with joy, and in that moment, I felt a connection to her, unlike anything I had ever experienced. She was here, and she was happy, full of love and light. But it didn't stop there. My mom began to show me something beautiful. She revealed that she was caring for my child, the one I lost years ago, and also for the grandchildren I never got to meet. My daughter's lost babies, and even my sister's children. I had never imagined this, but there she was, lovingly holding them in heaven, her arms full of the children I thought I'd never see again. It was a moment of pure love and peace that filled my soul with comfort. My heart had found its rest, knowing they were all safe, loved, and cared for. For a long time, I hesitated to talk about this part of my experience because it was just too overwhelming to put into words. But as I reflect on it now, I realize how crucial it is, because it's something that deeply shaped my understanding of God's love. You see, while I was in heaven, I learned just how much Jesus cares about every little detail of our lives. It's beyond comprehension. He is a loving Father, watching over us with such deep affection, guiding us, letting us interact, but always there, a steady, loving presence. And in that moment, I felt something I had never felt before, a profound sense of gratitude. I felt so loved, so cared for, and the overwhelming beauty of His love surrounded me like a warm embrace. But as powerful as that feeling was, My journey wasn't over. Jesus then took me deeper, showing me not just the beauty of heaven, but also the reality of the spiritual battles that rage beyond what we can see. We descended from the third heaven, where God's presence fills every corner, to the second heaven, a darker realm where spiritual warfare is constant. There, I saw angels and demons locked in fierce battle, their conflict so intense it felt like the very air around us was charged with electricity. I witnessed explosions, like red atomic bombs going off, and saw warriors, angels fighting with swords, demons countering with their own dark weapons. It was a chaotic scene, yet I could feel that it was necessary. Jesus showed me this to make me understand the true scope of the battle that takes place on a spiritual level every day. He wanted me to see that this war is real, and it impacts everything. As we moved deeper into this realm, I looked down and saw a man in an office, a figure that radiated evil, like something straight out of a nightmare. He had a smug, almost haughty expression on his face, and everything about him oozed malevolence. His pale face and sinister aura reminded me of a villain from a movie. I could feel the evil emanating from him as he leaned back in his chair, surrounded by TVs, computers, and cell phones. It was as though he was controlling everything, pulling the strings of a world that was descending into darkness. Then something even more unsettling happened. From his mouth came a smoky substance, like cigarette smoke, but it didn't dissipate. Instead, it formed into musical notes, swirling and vibrating with an eerie, zapping sound that filled the air. I could feel the malevolent energy behind it, and Jesus told me that this was the spirit of the Antichrist. This entity's influence was spreading, reaching out into the world. And it wasn't just him. It was the sound that carried his influence, like a wave that carried demonic forces with it. As I watched, I saw these creatures begin to dance and move with the sound, following it, carrying its dark energy toward Earth. I realized that this is how evil works. It spreads through whispers, through influence, through deception. Jesus didn't just show me the battle. He wanted me to understand how it manifests in the world. He took me back to Earth, where I found myself standing in the middle of a vast, empty field. Suddenly, churches and buildings began to rise from the ground. Different denominations, different faiths. Each one built upon a foundation of misinformation and works-based salvation. I saw the kingdom halls, the temples, the grand cathedrals, and I realized that these were places where people were being misled. I felt a deep, heavy grief within me, an overwhelming sadness that seemed to come from Jesus himself. He allowed me to feel his heartbreak, to understand the depth of his pain. These were places that made people believe they had to work to earn God's love. They were being told that they had to prove themselves worthy, that salvation was something to be earned. And as I watched, I heard Jesus' voice, gentle but firm, urging me to tell them, "I love them. Tell them I love them." It was as if his heart was breaking for those who didn't understand that God's love is a free gift, not something we can earn. He repeated it over and over, and the words echoed through my spirit. "Tell them I love them. Tell them I love them." I understood in that moment that no matter who we are, no matter what we've done, God's love is unconditional. It's not about what we can do for him. It's about accepting the grace he freely offers. The love I was feeling there in heaven, that overwhelming, unconditional love, was a gift, an unearned, unmerited gift. I also realized that God doesn't want us to live in fear or condemnation. Even when I was lost, Even when I was at my lowest point, he still loved me. I didn't deserve it, but he gave it anyway. It was a love that changed me forever, a love that has the power to transform every person who embraces it. As Jesus continued to guide me, I saw more. I witnessed how the sound of the Antichrist's influence began to spread, reaching not only the lost, but even those who should have been leading others to truth. I saw leaders, preachers, and religious figures embracing the same false narrative, following the wrong sound, leading others down a dangerous path. As my journey continued, I began to witness not only the beauty of heaven, but also the painful reality of what happens when we turn away from God's love. And then something happened that shook me to my core. I saw people throwing themselves into a fire. It was like a giant burning pit, filled with a foul, unbearable smell. And in that pit, I saw people, some I knew, some I didn't, being consumed by the flames. They were lost, misled by lies, unaware of the truth that could save them. It was a heart-wrenching sight. But Jesus was there, and he kept reminding me, "Tell them I love them. Tell them I love them." His love is what can save us. It's not too late for anyone. It doesn't matter where we've been or what we've done. He is always ready to embrace us. Just as I thought my journey had come to an end, Jesus gently guided me back to the third heaven. From there, I could see earth, and Jesus released a sound, one that flowed down from heaven like a river of love. I could feel it pouring out, touching hearts, breaking through the darkness. And as that sound reached the earth, I saw lights, tiny, bright lights, beginning to appear all over the world. These lights were his glory hubs, places where his presence was being felt, where people were beginning to understand the truth of his love. Through it all, I understood one thing clearly. Jesus wanted us to know that we don't have to earn his love. We don't have to be perfect or follow a set of rules. His love is freely given, and it's always there, waiting for us to receive it. His love is the truth that can set us free. "Tell them I love them," he said. And now, I am telling you. As I stood there in the embrace of Jesus, everything around me seemed to fade into the background. I could feel his arms wrap around me, his chest a comforting presence, steady and sure. For a moment I rested my head against him, soaking in the peace, the love, the safety. I had never felt more secure in my life. But then something shifted. He began to move, gently pulling me into a dance, and with it, everything changed. It wasn't just a dance. It was like a celebration of joy, a moment of pure connection. As he twirled me around, I could feel his love pouring into me deeper and deeper, like I was floating in a sea of warmth and light. We were no longer in the same place. Suddenly, I was aware that we were in a magnificent city made entirely of gold, its streets gleaming under a light that I couldn't even fully comprehend. The air shimmered, and the buildings around us sparkled like jewels, radiant and alive. I could see the most stunning blue river flowing out from his throne, a river that seemed to hold the very essence of life. What amazed me most wasn't the splendor of the place, though. It was the fact that he wasn't on the throne. He was with me, moving through this glorious space as though it was his personal, private place, where he invited me into his intimate world. As we danced, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of belonging. His presence wasn't distant or removed. It was personal, tender, and real. We were dancing, yes, but we were also connecting, heart to heart, soul to soul. He wasn't just watching over me from afar. He was sharing this beautiful, sacred moment with me. But then, as gently as the moment had begun, it started to shift again. I felt him guide me back, almost as if he were dancing me back toward my body. The transition was soft, but powerful, as if he were pulling me from one world back into another. And as he began to release me, I found myself face to face with him. His breath was on my face, his eyes locked with mine, and he said softly, "Amy, remember." His words were like a gentle whisper, yet they carried such weight. "EP," he repeated. I didn't understand it at first, but I knew it was important. Before I could ask more, the world around me began to blur. I felt myself being pulled away, and the connection between us stretched, grew farther apart. Then, suddenly, I was back in my body, lying in a hospital bed, still in the coma, the ventilator keeping me alive. It was a surreal experience. I could hear the voices of my family around me, but I couldn't make sense of it all. Later, when I began to recover, I tried to explain what had happened, but no one believed me. They couldn't understand how I could know things that I wasn't supposed to. It was freaky, to say the least. As I spent more time in prayer and reflection, the meaning behind what Jesus whispered to me began to unfold. The phrase EP, or Ephatha, was something I had never heard before. But as I prayed and meditated on it, the meaning began to unfold. I learned from others, people who spoke Aramaic, that it was a word Jesus spoke in the Bible, specifically when he healed a deaf and mute man. It means, be opened. At first, I didn't realize how profound this was, but over time, as I continued to pray and seek understanding, I realized that it was a powerful message for me. Jesus was opening me to amazing beginnings. Before this experience, I had struggled with crippling anxiety. Fear had ruled my life for as long as I could remember. I had gone through some incredibly painful experiences, personal trauma and abuse, that had left deep scars. I could barely leave my house. Even going to the grocery store felt like an insurmountable task. But in that moment, in his presence, the fear was gone. His perfect love cast out the fear that had held me captive for so long. When I woke up from my coma, I could feel an undeniable change in myself. It was as if the fear and anxiety that had controlled my life were suddenly gone. The fear that had once consumed me had vanished. I was free. I could go out and talk to people again. I was able to embrace life in a way I hadn't in years. It was like a weight had been lifted from my soul. The anxiety I had lived with for so long was gone, completely replaced by peace and a newfound courage. I realized that my experience in heaven wasn't just a glimpse of the afterlife. It was a new beginning for me. Jesus had opened my heart to a life I thought I'd lost forever. I was no longer bound by the chains of fear and anxiety. Instead, I was free to live the life he intended for me, full of purpose, love, and light. As I reflect on it now, I understand that Jesus was giving me something far beyond just healing. He was giving me a new start. And that new beginning wasn't just for me. It was for anyone who chooses to receive his love, his grace, and his invitation to be free. I am living proof of the power of his love to transform lives. If he can heal someone like me, he can heal anyone. This is just the beginning of the journey, one filled with hope, with light, and with the kind of love that changes everything. After my experience in heaven, I found myself struggling to fully absorb everything I had witnessed. My human body just couldn't grasp the immense beauty and truth I had been shown. At first, it was incredibly frustrating. I longed to relive those moments, to be enveloped again in the overwhelming love and peace I had felt in his presence. Each night, before I drifted to sleep, I would ask Jesus, "Can you visit me in a dream? Can you show me again what I saw?" I had always been a dreamer, but since this experience, my dreams have been extraordinary. Sometimes I'm taken to other realms, lifted into new worlds where the colors are vibrant beyond imagination, where everything seems alive with meaning. I'm not sure if everyone feels this way, but I've come to understand that the human body is limited, especially when it comes to experiencing something as extraordinary as heaven. The senses there are multiplied, magnified in ways that are beyond anything we can comprehend. The colors are 1,000,000 times more vivid, the light so brilliant it almost hurts your soul, and the peace. It's so profound, it's impossible to truly describe in any language. It's like trying to put the beauty of heaven into a tiny box. It just doesn't fit. I often think it would be amazing if there was a way to share my memory, to plug it into a device so that others could see what I saw. It's the kind of experience that words can't capture, no matter how hard we try. This experience also brought something deeply transformative to light for me: the overwhelming love of Jesus. When he repeatedly told me, "Tell them I love them," it was as if he was trying to break through every wall we've built around ourselves. So many people believe they have to work for God's love, that they must earn it somehow. But that's not true. Jesus kept saying, "Tell them I love them," because he wants everyone to know that his love isn't conditional. It isn't about what we do to deserve it, but simply about receiving it. His love is freely given, no strings attached. There's a spirit in the world that tries to convince us otherwise, the spirit of Antichrist, as some call it. It's a deceptive force that spreads lies, making us believe we must strive, we must work to earn his love. But that's not the message Jesus brought. He was the perfect embodiment of love and grace, a love that doesn't ask for anything in return, but simply wants us to accept it. And yet, we still see so many who have been misled, who have been taught that they must follow strict rules or prove their worthiness. That's not the truth. The truth is that Jesus simply wants to be with us. He wants to share his love, his grace, and he is calling us back to him. When I think about the power of his love, I realize it's not just for me, it's for everyone. There's no one beyond his reach, no one too far gone to be loved by him. That's the message I want to share with the world. Jesus is calling each of us to experience his love. He wants to be in relationship with us, to walk with us, to bring us back to the place we were always meant to be, home with him. His love is the constant thread that runs through everything, from the beginning to the end of our lives, and even beyond. All he asks is that we open our hearts to it, to truly understand how deeply he cares for us. And when we do, everything changes. As I reflect on my experience, it's overwhelming to think about the way we, as humans, continuously rejected Jesus. Despite our rejection, he never gave up on us. Time and time again, we turned away, yet he still found a way to bring us back. The ultimate gift, though, was when he sent his son, Jesus, to bridge the gap between us and God the Father. Jesus became the path to the third heaven, the way to eternal life with him. And that's the message I carry with me. He wants everyone to join him, to ride that sound wave of his love and be with him forever. That call isn't just for a few, it's for everyone, everywhere. I feel this truth deeply within me every day. I see it when I'm at the grocery store, when I'm walking down the street. It's like this overwhelming need to share his love with anyone and everyone. I want people to know the love of Jesus, to feel the peace and joy that only comes from knowing him. I want to be a part of spreading his glory and letting others experience that transformative love. There's this beautiful verse from the Gospel of John where Jesus tells us, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." It's such a powerful statement, and for so many, it's hard to grasp. We want to believe that all paths lead to heaven, that there are many ways to get to God. But Jesus was clear. He is the only way. It's through him that we connect with God the Father. When I think about the disciples and their doubts, I realize how much we too can struggle with understanding his ways. Thomas, for example, needed to see the physical proof, the marks on Jesus' hands, before he believed. And even when Jesus was with them after his resurrection, they still didn't fully understand the depth of who he was. But as time went on, they finally got it. They saw his divinity, they experienced his truth. They no longer feared death or persecution because they understood the eternal life that Jesus had promised. But it wasn't just about understanding. He was calling them to action. He wanted them to live out their faith boldly, without fear, knowing that their ultimate destination was heaven. And that's where I am now. After everything I've experienced, I'm not afraid of anything. Yes, I've faced struggles. Yes, life on earth is hard, but heaven is real, and it's my ultimate destination. My spirit longs for it, just as Paul spoke of in his letters. I understand now what he meant when he said, "I'd rather be with the Lord, but I'm here for you." What I've learned, though, is that while we're here, we have a mission. We're not just meant to survive. We're meant to live with purpose, to spread the message of God's love. Jesus is building a kingdom in heaven, and he's calling us to help bring that kingdom to earth. His love is so powerful, it's meant to be shared. And I believe that's why we're all here. Each of us has a role in sharing his love and truth, whether through words, actions, or simply being a light in the world. So, as I stand here, I can't help but feel compelled to share this message with everyone I meet. I want people to know that God loves them, that he's reaching out with open arms. It's not about following rules or proving ourselves worthy. It's about receiving the grace he's already offered. Jesus did all the work. All we have to do is accept it. And when we do, everything changes. That's the good news of the gospel, and I'll never stop sharing it. As I wrap up sharing this life-changing experience with you, I want to leave you with one powerful thought. Jesus loves you more than you can ever imagine. The message I've received from heaven is simple yet profound. God is calling you into his love, into his grace, into his arms. No matter where you've been or what you've done, his love is unshakable, and it's available to you right now. It's not about religion. It's about a relationship with him. You don't have to work for it. You just have to accept it. I've experienced his love in a way that words can't fully describe, and I want you to experience it too. If what I've shared today has touched your heart, I encourage you to do something about it. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's spread the message of God's love far and wide. Comment below and let me know what spoke to you. I want to hear about your own experiences, your own journey, and how God is moving in your life. By subscribing to this channel, you're not just joining a community, you're stepping into a space where God's blessings can overflow in your life. You'll be the first to hear more messages of hope, encouragement, and transformation. And remember, God's grace is available to you, no matter where you are in life. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. I believe with all my heart that God is using this moment to reach you. So don't wait. Accept His love, spread the word, and let's walk this path of faith together. Blessings are waiting for you. Hit that bell to get notified, and let's make this world a place filled with His light. God bless you.